I was supposed to babysit 15 wild kids at my cousin's dreamy Napa Valley wedding, but what I did instead shocked my entire family. They expected me to miss the whole ceremony, stay hidden behind the barn, and quietly sacrifice my day like always. Instead, I walked straight into the middle of the aisle with all 15 kids behind me, juice-stained, exhausted, and done being the family doormat. What happened next? Tears, gasps, a bride in tears, and the moment I finally found my voice. You won't believe how one bold decision changed everything. This is the shocking true story of family pressure, broken boundaries, and the day I stopped shrinking. Watch till the end. You might need tissues.
I still remember the exact moment my phone lit up with Aunt Linda's name. It was a random Tuesday evening in Chicago. I was curled up on my couch in my tiny apartment, wearing fuzzy socks and sipping cheap Pinot Grigio after a long day of back-to-back Zoom meetings. The city lights flickered outside my window like distant stars, and for once, life felt almost peaceful. Then the phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Something in my gut twisted the second I saw her name. Aunt Linda had that special talent. She could make even the most innocent phone call feel like a setup. But family guilt is a powerful thing, especially when you're the oldest daughter in a loud, opinionated Italian-Irish-American clan that still believes blood is thicker than therapy. "Hey, Aunt Linda," I said, trying to sound cheerful as I muted my true crime podcast. "Sweetheart, how's my favorite niece doing?" Her voice was all sugar and fake warmth, the kind she used right before dropping a bomb. "Listen, I'm calling about Emily's wedding. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. Vineyard in Napa Valley, string lights everywhere, live band, the works. Your cousin only gets married once, you know." I smiled despite myself. Emily and I had been close growing up, even if life had pulled us in different directions. She was the golden child, bubbly, always smiling in family photos. I was the reliable one, the one who showed up early, stayed late, and never complained. "That sounds amazing," I replied. "I already booked my flight and hotel. I can't wait to dance and actually enjoy being a guest for once." There was a tiny pause, the kind of pause that makes your stomach drop before the bad news even lands. "Oh, honey, about that." Aunt Linda's tone shifted, sliding into that sweet but serious register every woman in my family knows too well. "We have a little situation with the kids. 15 of them are coming, ages 3 to 12. You know how chaotic weddings get with little ones running around. We need someone responsible to watch them during the ceremony and most of the reception, someone the parents can actually trust." My wine glass froze halfway to my lips. 15 kids? I swallowed hard, already feeling the familiar weight pressing on my chest. 15? That's a lot. Can't we hire a couple of professional babysitters? Or maybe split the duty between a few of us cousins? Aunt Linda laughed like I'd suggested something ridiculous, like serving caviar at a backyard barbecue. "Oh, come on, sweetheart. You know how tight the budget is with the open bar, the florist, and that fancy photographer from San Francisco. Besides, you're so good with kids. They all love you. You have that patient teacher voice. It'll be easy for you. And since you're family, we figured you wouldn't mind doing it as a favor." A favor. The word landed like a slap. I stared at the half-packed suitcase in the corner of my living room, the one I'd been excitedly filling with my new emerald green dress, strappy heels, and the silver clutch I'd bought just for this trip. I had pictured myself laughing with cousins, taking silly photos in the vineyard, maybe even flirting with someone cute at the bar. For once, I wanted to be the woman in the pretty dress enjoying the day, not the invisible helper in the background. "Aunt Linda, I was really looking forward to being a guest this time," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been in therapy for the last year working on setting boundaries." And boundaries? She cut me off with a dramatic sigh that could win an Oscar. "Honey, this is family. We don't do boundaries when someone needs help. Your cousin Emily is stressed out of her mind planning this perfect day. Don't be selfish. It's just a few hours. You can still enjoy the reception afterward, if the kids settle down. Just a few hours.
with 15 children, no pay, no backup, no thanks expected. I closed my eyes and leaned my head back against the couch. Memories flooded in. Every family gathering where I ended up in the kitchen doing dishes while everyone else relaxed. Every holiday where I watched the kids so the real adults could drink wine and gossip. Every time I said yes, because saying no made me the villain. At 28, I had a solid marketing job at a downtown agency, my own apartment, and a growing sense that I was done playing the role of family martyr. But old patterns die hard, especially when your mother, aunts, and grandmother have spent decades reinforcing them. "I'll think about it," I finally said, because I couldn't bring myself to say no right then and there. "That's my girl," Aunt Linda cooed, victory dripping from her voice. "We knew we could count on you. Text me your flight details so we can coordinate pickup. And wear something comfortable. You'll probably be running around a lot." When I hung up, the apartment felt smaller, colder. I walked over to the full-length mirror in my bedroom and stared at my reflection. Same curly brown hair I'd inherited from my Italian side, same tired hazel eyes that had seen too many late nights. The woman looking back at me had spent years smiling through resentment, saying no problem when it was very much a problem. But something was different this time. A quiet, stubborn voice in my chest whispered, "This time, it's different." I didn't know yet how right that feeling was. 2 weeks later, as the plane touched down in San Francisco and I rented my little white sedan for the drive up to Napa, my stomach was in knots. The group chat for the wedding had been blowing up with photos of centerpieces, dress fittings, and excited countdowns. Every time someone posted, "Can't wait to celebrate with family," my thumb hovered over the keyboard, wanting to type the truth. Instead, I stayed silent. The night before the wedding, I checked into the cute boutique hotel overlooking the valley. My emerald dress hung in the closet like a promise I wasn't sure I'd get to keep. I sat on the edge of the king-sized bed, phone in hand, rereading Aunt Linda's last message. "See you bright and early tomorrow. The kids will be dropped off at the kids' zone by 2 p.m. You're a lifesaver. Love you." Lifesaver? Or doormat? I opened my notes app and started typing. Not a reply, but a list. A list of every time I had been the default helper, the unpaid labor, the emotional support system for a family that never seemed to notice how much it cost me. By the time I finished, the page was long. I saved it, turned off the lights, and lay there staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. Tomorrow was supposed to be a celebration, but deep down, I already knew it was going to become something else entirely. A reckoning. Because this time, the reliable one had finally run out of yeses. And when that happened, nobody in my family was ready for what came next. The days after Aunt Linda's phone call blurred into a slow-motion nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I tried to focus on work, client pitches, campaign deadlines, the usual chaos of marketing life in Chicago, but every notification on my phone felt like another brick being stacked on my chest. The family group chat, cleverly named Emily's Big Day, Sparkles, went from excited wedding memes to something far more sinister, coordinated pressure aimed directly at me. It started subtly. Mom was the first to strike. Her text came while I was in the middle of a team meeting. "Sweetie, Aunt Linda told me you're hesitating about helping with the kids. Please don't make this difficult. Emily has dreamed of this day since she was little. You're her favorite cousin. Don't ruin it by being selfish." I stared at the message under the conference table, my face burning. Selfish. The word my family loved to weaponize whenever I dared to want something for myself. I was 28 years old, paying my own rent, student loans, and health insurance, yet one suggestion that I might not want to spend an entire wedding chasing 15 children turned me into the villain. Before I could even type a reply, my sister Jessica jumped in. "Come on, sis, it's just a few hours. You're so good with kids, way better than me. Remember when you watched all the nieces and nephews at Thanksgiving so the adults could actually eat? Everyone said you were a saint. This is the same thing. Stop overthinking it." A saint. That word used to make me feel proud. Now it made me feel invisible. I excused myself from the meeting, locked myself in the bathroom, and typed back with shaking fingers.
I love Emily. I want to celebrate with her, not miss the entire day babysitting for free. Can we please hire professionals? I'll even chip in money if the budget is tight. The replies came fast and furious. Uncle Mike, if you say no, your grandmother will be so disappointed. She's not doing well, heart issues. We don't want to stress her out before the wedding. Grandma, the ultimate guilt card. My grandmother had raised half the family after my grandfather passed, and she knew exactly how to look at you with those watery blue eyes and make you feel like you were personally responsible for her happiness. I pictured her sitting in her favorite armchair back in New Jersey, clutching her rosary, sighing about the young people these days who don't value family. My chest tightened. Then came the private messages, the ones that felt even more manipulative because they were one-on-one. My brother Tommy texted separately, "Dude, just do it. You're making everyone look bad. It's one day. Suck it up." Even my dad, who usually stayed out of drama, sent a short message. "Your mom is really upset. Think about how this looks for the family." By the end of that first week, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of expectations. Every relative had an opinion, and every opinion boiled down to the same thing. My desires didn't matter. My boundaries were selfish. My need to actually enjoy the wedding I had paid to attend was unreasonable. I started losing sleep. Nights were the worst. I'd lie in bed replaying every family gathering from the past 10 years. The time I missed my best friend's bachelorette party because I had to watch my cousin's kids at a reunion. The Christmas I spent in the playroom while everyone else opened gifts and drank eggnog. The endless, "Can you just hold the baby while I run to the store?" requests that somehow turned into full-day childcare. I had become the default babysitter because I was single, responsible, and, according to them, had no real responsibilities of my own. Never mind my demanding job, my therapy appointments, or the fact that I was trying to build a life that didn't revolve around everyone else's needs.
One night, around 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I called my therapist, Dr. Ramirez, even though it wasn't our scheduled session. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm and steady. "I'm spiraling," I whispered into the phone, tears burning my eyes. "They're making me feel like if I say no, I'm destroying the family, like I'm a terrible person for wanting to wear a pretty dress and dance at my cousin's wedding instead of changing diapers and breaking up toddler fights." Dr. Ramirez listened without interrupting, then spoke gently. "This is classic enmeshment and emotional blackmail. You've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes you selfish, but boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. The question is, what do you need to protect your peace?" Her words should have empowered me. Instead, they made the knot in my stomach tighter. Because deep down, I still loved these people. They were my blood, my history. The loud, chaotic, wine-soaked family that showed up for funerals and births with casseroles and inappropriate jokes. Saying no felt like ripping out a piece of myself. The pressure kept building right up until my flight. The day before I left for California, the group chat reached a fever pitch. Someone posted photos of the vineyard, golden hills, long wooden tables set with white linens and wildflowers, a beautiful oak tree where the ceremony would take place. It looked magical, exactly the kind of day I had been dreaming about. Then Aunt Linda posted a new message. "Kids Zone is all set up. Thank you to our amazing volunteer babysitter who's making this possible. We couldn't do it without you." She tagged me. My stomach dropped. She had already announced it to everyone like it was a done deal. No discussion, no escape. I stared at that message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to reply with a calm, firm no. Another part, the scared, people-pleasing part that had been trained for years, wanted to type, "happy to help." Instead, I turned my phone off and cried in my apartment, surrounded by half-packed bags and the beautiful emerald dress I wasn't sure I'd get to wear. As the Uber took me to O'Hare Airport the next morning, I kept thinking the same thing over and over. This time has to be different. I didn't know how I would do it yet. I didn't have a grand plan. But something deep inside me, something tired of shrinking, tired of disappearing so others could shine, was waking up. The plane took off into the gray Chicago sky, carrying me toward Napa Valley, toward the wedding, toward the moment I knew would either break me completely or finally set me free. I just hoped I was strong enough to handle whatever came next, because the guilt machine was running at full speed, and it showed no signs of stopping. The California sun was already blazing by the time I pulled my rented white sedan into the long gravel driveway of Silver Oak Vineyard. The place looked like it had been plucked straight out of a Pinterest dream board. Rolling golden hills, rows of perfectly manicured grapevines, and a massive rustic barn converted into the main reception hall. White wooden chairs were arranged in elegant rows under an ancient oak tree draped with flowing white fabric and twinkling fairy lights. It was breathtaking, the kind of wedding venue that makes you believe in magic for a second. But as I stepped out of the car in my jeans and sneakers, Aunt Linda had specifically told me to dress comfy for setup. The magic started to fade fast. Aunt Linda spotted me immediately and came rushing over in her pastel pink mother of the bride dress, clipboard in hand like she was directing a military operation. Her hair was perfectly highlighted, her makeup flawless, and her smile was the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're here, thank God," she said, pulling me into a tight, perfume-heavy hug. "The florist is running late, the band just arrived, and we still have so much to do. Here, take this." She shoved a massive Cantus tote bag into my arms. It was heavy. I peeked inside. Juice boxes, goldfish crackers, coloring books, wet wipes, diapers, and what looked like enough Band-Aids to stock a small ER.
15 kids, she reminded me cheerfully, as if I could possibly forget. They'll start getting dropped off around 2 p.m. We've set up a little kids zone behind the barn. Hay bales, some plastic tables, and shade. Keep them quiet during the ceremony. After the vows, you can bring them over for cake, if they behave. I adjusted the heavy bag on my shoulder, already feeling sweat trickle down my back. "Aunt Linda, I thought maybe we could—" "No time for that now, honey," she cut me off, waving her hand. "Emily's getting her hair done, and your mom is helping with the seating chart. Just be your usual amazing self. You're a lifesaver." Before I could say another word, she was already hurrying off toward a group of vendors, barking orders about centerpieces. I stood there alone for a moment, the weight of the bag digging into my shoulder, staring at the beautiful scene unfolding around me. Guests were starting to arrive in their elegant outfits, pastel dresses, tailored suits, big hats, and designer sunglasses. Laughter floated through the air. Someone popped a bottle of champagne near the tasting room. It smelled like joy and celebration. And there I was, already assigned to the sidelines. I made my way behind the barn to the so-called kid zone. It was exactly as described, a sad little corral made of hay bales and plastic folding tables covered with paper tablecloths. A few balloons were tied to the chairs, already starting to droop in the heat. No professional babysitters, no games planned, just me and whatever was in that tote bag. My stomach twisted.
I checked the guest list that had been emailed to all family members the week before. My name wasn't under guests or even family. It was listed under staff and helpers in a tiny footnote at the bottom. Next to it, childcare, full day. The first red flag slapped me hard across the face. I wasn't even considered a real guest. I was labor. By 2:15 p.m., the first parents started dropping off their children like it was daycare drop-off at preschool. "Here's little Mason," one aunt said, handing over a squirming 4-year-old who immediately tried to run toward the grapevines. He had a big juice box in the car, so he might be a little hyper. "Good luck." Another cousin dropped off twin girls, ages 6. "They're in a princess phase. Just let them twirl around. Oh, and Madison is allergic to strawberries, but cake should be fine, right?" A third parent handed me a toddler still in diapers. "She might need a change soon. Thanks so much. You're the best." Within 30 minutes, I had all 15 kids. The noise level exploded. 2 were already crying because they wanted their moms. One boy was trying to climb the hay bales like they were a jungle gym. A little girl spilled her juice box all over my jeans and then laughed like it was the funniest thing ever. I was sweating, my hair sticking to my neck, and my sneakers were covered in dirt and goldfish crumbs. Meanwhile, soft, classical music drifted from the ceremony area. I could see guests taking their seats, smiling, sipping mimosas, looking picture perfect.
My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my mother. "We can see you from here. Smile, honey. Don't ruin the photos with a grumpy face." I looked up. Sure enough, several family members were glancing back toward the kid zone with that familiar mix of pity and quiet judgment. My sister Jessica even waved, then turned back to laugh with her friends as if nothing was wrong. That was the second red flag. They could see me struggling. They knew exactly what was happening, and not one of them offered to help. Not one suggested trading places for even 30 minutes so I could catch the ceremony. I knelt down to comfort a crying 3-year-old, my knees sinking into the dry grass, while the beautiful string quartet began playing Canon in D in the distance. The ceremony was starting. Emily would be walking down the aisle any minute now in her white gown under that perfect oak tree, and I was missing it, all of it. A 6-year-old boy tugged at my shirt. "When do we get to see the wedding? My mom said you're the babysitter, so we can do whatever we want today." His innocent words hit me like ice water. Babysitter.
Not cousin, not family member, babysitter. The sun beat down harder. My emerald green dress was still hanging untouched in the hotel room, waiting for a woman who might never get to wear it. My makeup was already smearing from the heat and stress, and somewhere deep inside, that quiet voice I'd been hearing for weeks grew louder. This isn't right. This isn't fair. The chaos around me swelled, kids laughing, screaming, running in circles. I tried to wrangle them, to keep them contained, but my mind was racing ahead to what would happen next, because if no one stepped up soon, I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep smiling through it. The first cracks in my patience were already forming, and the wedding had only just begun. By 3:30 p.m., the beautiful Napa Valley afternoon had turned into my personal version of hell. The kid zone behind the barn had completely fallen apart. Hay bales were scattered like someone had set off a small explosion. Juice boxes lay crushed and sticky on the ground. Coloring books were torn, crayons melted in the sun, and at least 3 children were covered in dirt and grass stains. My jeans were soaked with spilled fruit punch, my sneakers squished with every step, and my favorite white t-shirt now had a bright red handprint from a toddler who had decided finger painting with strawberry juice was a good idea. I was exhausted, sweating through my clothes, and my voice had gone hoarse from trying to keep 15 little humans from destroying the vineyard or each other. 2 kids were crying nonstop, one because he missed his mommy, the other because someone had taken his toy truck. The twin girls were spinning in circles, screaming, "We're princesses," at the top of their lungs. A hyper 7-year-old boy kept trying to escape toward the ceremony area, yelling that he wanted to see the princess get married. And the youngest, a tiny 3-year-old girl named Lily, had attached herself to my leg and refused to let go. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket like an angry hornet. I ignored it at first. I knew what the messages would say. But when it wouldn't stop, I finally pulled it out with sticky fingers. "Mom, we can see you from here. Smile, honey. Don't ruin the photos." Aunt Linda, "Keep them quiet. The ceremony is about to start. Emily can hear the noise." My sister, "You're doing great. Just a little longer. Love you." Just a little longer. The string quartet had switched to soft romantic music. I could hear the murmur of 200 guests settling into their seats under the oak tree. The air smelled like fresh flowers, expensive perfume, and grilled appetizers being passed around. Laughter floated over from the main area, the kind of carefree, joyful laughter that belonged to people who were actually enjoying the day. And here I was, trapped behind the barn, missing everything I had flown across the country to experience. My emerald green dress was still hanging in the hotel closet, untouched. My makeup had long since melted off. My hair, which I had spent 40 minutes curling that morning, was now a frizzy mess tied back in a sweaty ponytail. I looked nothing like the elegant guest I had imagined myself being in the family photos. Instead, I looked exactly what they had made me, the unpaid babysitter. A 6-year-old boy tugged hard on my shirt. "I'm hungry again, and I need to pee." Another kid started wailing because a bee had flown too close.
I felt my chest tightening, that familiar panic rising. My hands started shaking as I tried to comfort Lily, who was now sobbing into my leg. The noise level was unbearable. Every scream, every cry, every demand felt like a hammer hitting the last fragile pieces of my patience. I closed my eyes for a second and took a deep breath, but it didn't help. Memories flooded in, all the times I had swallowed my feelings for the sake of family harmony, all the weddings, birthdays, and holidays where I had played this exact same role, always the responsible one, always the one who sacrificed so others could enjoy themselves, always smiling through the resentment until it ate me alive. Not this time. Something deep inside me, something raw and exhausted and finally fed up, snapped. I wasn't going to spend the most beautiful wedding of the year chasing toddlers and missing every meaningful moment while my family sat comfortably in their fancy clothes, sipping wine and taking photos. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. But what could I actually do? There were 15 kids, no backup plan, no other volunteers. The ceremony was literally minutes away from starting. I could already hear the officiant's voice testing the microphone under the oak tree.
My phone buzzed again. This time it was my grandmother. Be a good girl, sweetheart. Family helps family. Don't disappoint us today. That message was the final straw. Tears burned in my eyes, but I blinked them back hard. I wasn't going to cry in front of these kids. Not yet. I looked around at the chaos surrounding me. 15 little faces, some innocent, some mischievous, some just tired and overwhelmed, all depending on me because their parents had decided I was the free solution. They weren't the enemy, they were just kids who wanted to see their family get married too. But I was not their free entertainment. I was not the family sacrifice. I was a 28-year-old woman who had worked hard for her own life, and I deserved to be a guest at this wedding. The music swelled louder. The ceremony was beginning. I could see guests turning their heads toward the aisle, phones ready to record. Emily would be walking down any second now in her stunning white gown. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to stay hidden behind the barn like a shameful secret. I was going to bring the chaos straight to them. I quickly gathered the kids as best as I could, wiping faces, straightening shirts, whispering promises of, "We're going to see the wedding now." Some of them got excited. Others kept crying, but I lined them up like little ducklings, holding hands in pairs, with Lily still clinging to my leg. My hands were trembling. My mind was racing with fear and adrenaline. What if they all hated me? What if I ruined Emily's perfect day? What if this made me the villain of the entire family forever? But the other voice, the stronger one that had been growing quieter for years, whispered back, "What if this is the moment you finally choose yourself?" I took one last look at the beautiful scene in front of me, the oak tree, the flowers, the elegant guests, and started walking toward the ceremony area with my army of 15 noisy, sticky, exhausted children trailing behind me. The sun felt hotter. My heart raced faster. Every step brought me closer to the moment of truth. I had no idea how my family would react, but I knew one thing for certain. My legs felt like lead as I marched the 15 kids out from behind the barn toward the main ceremony area. The late afternoon sun blazed across the Napa Valley hills, turning everything golden and beautiful, but inside me it felt like a storm was breaking. Every step kicked up little clouds of dust from the dry grass. Lily still clung to my leg like a koala, her tiny fingers gripping my sticky jeans. The twins were giggling and twirling, while the older boys kept trying to break free from the hand-holding chain I had formed. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure the entire wedding party could hear it over the string quartet. I had no grand speech prepared, no perfectly worded plan. All I knew was that I couldn't stay hidden anymore. I refused to miss my cousin's wedding while everyone else celebrated. If they wanted me to watch the kids, then the kids were coming with me, right into the middle of everything. But first, I needed a small detour. I spotted the wedding coordinator near the edge of the seating area.
A harried woman in a sharp black suit, earpiece in place, clutching a tablet like it was her lifeline. Her name tag read Rachel. She looked like she was already on her third Red Bull of the day. I steered my chaotic little parade toward her, trying to keep the kids from scattering like startled chickens.
"Hi, Rachel," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could, even though my throat felt tight. "I'm supposed to be watching these children, but I'm actually a guest, Emily's cousin. Is there any way we can get professional childcare help? I can pay for it myself if the budget is the issue. I can't miss the entire ceremony." Rachel's eyes widened as she took in the scene. Me looking like I'd survived a war zone, 15 sticky kids buzzing with energy, some still sniffling, others bouncing with excitement at the sight of the pretty white chairs and flowers. She lowered her voice. "The bride specifically said no extra costs for childcare. Her mother told everyone you volunteered and that you were happy to do it as family." Volunteered. The word tasted bitter on my tongue, like cheap wine left open too long. "I didn't volunteer," I said quietly but firmly. "I was told I had no choice. This wasn't my decision." Rachel glanced nervously toward the oak tree where the ceremony was about to begin. Guests were settling in, adjusting their sunglasses, chatting softly. Emily's groom stood at the front, looking handsome and nervous in his tux. The officiant was adjusting his microphone. I'll see what I can do," Rachel whispered, already looking overwhelmed. "But it might take time to call someone in. We're literally minutes from starting." I knew "see what I can do" meant almost nothing in wedding coordinator language. Time was running out.
So I did something bolder. I pulled out my phone with one hand while still holding Lily's with the other. My fingers were shaking as I opened the big family group chat, the one with over 40 relatives, the one that had been blowing up with pressure and guilt for weeks. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard for what felt like forever. Then I typed the message that would change everything. "Family, I love you all, but I will not be babysitting 15 children today. I came here as a guest, not staff. If someone doesn't arrange proper childcare in the next 10 minutes, I will be joining the ceremony as planned, and the kids will be coming with me to sit with their parents." I read it once, then twice. My stomach flipped. Before I could overthink it, I hit send. The second the message went through, my phone started exploding with notifications. It vibrated so violently I almost dropped it. I didn't read the replies yet. I couldn't. Not right now. Instead, I turned to the kids and said with as much calm as I could fake, "Okay, everyone, we're going to go see the wedding now. Stay together and hold hands. We're going to find your moms and dads." Some of the children cheered. A few looked confused. Lily wiped her runny nose on my shirt and smiled up at me with pure trust that made my heart ache. We started walking slowly toward the back of the seating area. The beautiful music swelled. Guests turned their heads one by one as my noisy, messy group approached. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through the grapevines.
What is she doing? Oh my God." I kept my chin up, even though my cheeks burned with embarrassment and adrenaline. My ruined clothes, messy hair, and the ragtag army of children behind me made me feel exposed, like I was walking naked into a room full of perfectly dressed people. But underneath the fear, something else was rising. A strange, powerful clarity. This was my line in the sand. Aunt Linda spotted us first. She was sitting in the second row, next to my mother. Her face went from relaxed mother-of-the-bride elegance to pure horror in half a second. She half stood, clutching her pearl necklace, mouth opening and closing like a fish. My mother's eyes met mine across the rows of chairs. I saw shock, then anger, then something that looked almost like fear. The officiant paused. The music faltered for a moment. Emily hadn't appeared yet. She was still waiting at the far end of the aisle with her father, but I could see movement behind the floral arch. She would be walking down any second. My phone kept buzzing nonstop in my pocket. I imagined the group chat melting down. "Mom, delete that right now. Aunt Linda, this is selfish on her wedding day. Uncle Mike, what the hell are you thinking?" But I didn't look. Not yet.
I stopped at the edge of the seating area. 15 kids lined up behind me like a chaotic honor guard.
The sun felt hotter on my skin. My heart raced so fast I thought I might pass out. In that suspended moment, everything hung in the balance. The beautiful vineyard wedding, the fairy tale setting, my entire family's expectations, all of it was about to collide with one simple truth. I was done disappearing. I was done being the default yes, and whatever happened in the next few minutes would either shatter everything or finally set me free. I took a deep breath, steadied my voice, and prepared to speak the words I had been holding inside for years. The ceremony music began to swell again. Emily was about to walk down the aisle, and I was standing right there, no longer invisible. The moment my message hit the family group chat, it was like dropping a grenade into a quiet room. My phone didn't just vibrate, it erupted. The buzzing was so constant and aggressive that it felt like the device was having a seizure in my pocket. I kept it there, refusing to look yet, because if I read those messages right now, I might lose every ounce of courage I had left. I stood at the edge of the seating area with 15 sticky, noisy kids lined up behind me like a ragtag army. The late afternoon sun poured golden light over the vineyard, making the white chairs and wildflower arrangements glow. Guests were turning in their seats, whispering, some pulling out phones to record what was clearly becoming the most dramatic moment of the wedding before the bride even walked down the aisle. Aunt Linda looked like she was about to have a stroke. She rose halfway from her chair in the second row, one hand clutching her pearls, the other waving frantically at me in a "what the hell are you doing" gesture. My mother sat beside her, her face frozen in that perfect mix of shock and barely contained rage I knew too well from childhood.
The officiant had stopped speaking. The string quartet faltered, the music trailing off into awkward silence. Even the groom at the front looked confused, glancing between the aisle and the commotion at the back. I could feel every eye on me. My cheeks burned. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. Sweat mixed with the juice stains on my shirt. Lily was still glued to my leg, sucking her thumb, completely unaware that her auntie had just started World War III in the family. My phone kept exploding. I finally pulled it out with trembling fingers and glanced at the screen. The group chat had gone nuclear. "Mom, what are you doing? Delete that message right now. This is Emily's day." Aunt Linda, "This is beyond selfish. Your cousin is about to walk down the aisle and you're causing a scene after everything we've done for you?" Uncle Mike, "Are you kidding me? Grow up. It's a few hours of babysitting. Don't ruin the wedding." My sister Jessica, "OMG sis, you're really doing this right now? On her wedding day? Think about how this looks." Even my brother Tommy chimed in. "Dude, delete it. You're making everyone look bad." The replies kept flooding in, one after another, each one hitting harder than the last. Some were angry, some were disappointed, a few were outright guilt-tripping. Grandma, typed in all caps as usual, "If you do this, you will break your cousin's heart. Is that who you want to be? Family helps family." Cousin Sarah, who I thought might be on my side, "Wait, she has a point. Why is she the only one expected to miss the whole wedding?" But that single supportive comment was quickly buried under a pile of angry reactions. My hands shook as I scrolled. The pressure felt suffocating, like the entire family was leaning on my chest, trying to push me back into the box they had kept me in for years. The reliable one, the quiet one, the one who always said yes. For a terrifying second, I almost caved. I almost typed, "Sorry, I overreacted," and started herding the kids back behind the barn like a good little martyr. But then I looked up. I saw the beautiful oak tree decorated with flowing white fabric and flowers. I saw 200 guests in their elegant outfits, champagne flutes in hand, waiting for the perfect fairy tale moment. I saw my own ruined clothes, my messy hair, and the 15 little faces behind me, who also deserved to witness this day, instead of being hidden away like an inconvenience. And something inside me hardened. No, not this time. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying to a single message. The buzzing continued, but I ignored it.
One of the little boys tugged my hand. "Are we in trouble?" "Not you, sweetie," I whispered. "Just stay close." The coordinator, Rachel, was now rushing toward me, her face pale. "Please," she hissed, "the bride is about to come out. Can you take them back?" Before I could answer, Emily appeared at the far end of the aisle on her father's arm. She looked absolutely stunning, a vision in white lace and silk, veil flowing behind her, bouquet of blush roses in her hands. The music swelled again, the quartet playing the classic wedding march. Guests stood up, phones raised, soft ahs rippling through the crowd. Emily started walking slowly down the aisle, smiling at her groom, eyes shining with happy tears. Then she saw me. Our eyes locked across the vineyard. She froze mid-step for just a fraction of a second. Her smile faltered as she took in the scene. Me standing there with my chaotic group of children, my stained clothes, the entire family staring daggers in my direction. In that moment, everything hung suspended. I could still back down. I could apologize, disappear behind the barn, and spend the rest of the day swallowing my resentment like I always had. Or I could stand my ground. My grandmother's words echoed in my head. "You will break your cousin's heart." Was I really willing to do that? My mother was mouthing something at me from her seat, probably, "Fix this now." Aunt Linda looked ready to march over and drag me away herself. The kids behind me were getting restless again. One started whining loudly. Another asked in a piercing voice, "When do we get cake?" The buzzing in my pocket grew even more frantic. I took a deep breath, the warm California air filling my lungs. This was it. The moment I had been avoiding for years. The moment where I finally chose myself over the family's expectations. Emily continued walking, but her eyes kept flicking back to me. She looked torn between the perfect day she had planned and the messy reality unfolding at the back of her ceremony. I straightened my shoulders, gathered the children closer, and waited. The music swelled louder. The aisle seemed endless, and in that heavy, electric silence, broken only by the occasional child's whimper, I knew the next few minutes would decide everything. Would Emily keep walking toward her groom and pretend nothing was wrong? Or would the truth finally come out in front of the entire family? My stomach twisted with fear and adrenaline. I had started this. Now there was no turning back.
The wedding march swelled around us like a wave, beautiful and inevitable. Emily looked like a dream, walking slowly down the long aisle on her father's arm, white lace catching the golden Napa sunlight, veil floating gently behind her, bouquet of soft pink roses trembling slightly in her hands. Every guest had risen to their feet, phones held high, soft murmurs of admiration rippling through the crowd. And there I stood at the back, a complete mess. My jeans were stained with juice and grass. My white t-shirt had sticky handprints and dirt smudges. My hair had escaped its ponytail and stuck to my sweaty neck in frizzy curls. 15 children shifted restlessly behind me, some whining, some excited, one still crying softly for his mom. Lily clung to my leg like she was afraid I might disappear too. I felt exposed, naked, like I had walked into the middle of a fairy tale wearing rags. My phone kept buzzing violently in my pocket, each vibration a fresh punch of guilt. I didn't need to look to know what they were saying. The family group chat was probably on fire with messages calling me selfish, dramatic, heartless. Aunt Linda was glaring at me from the second row like I had personally murdered her dreams for a perfect day. My mother's face was tight with that familiar, "How could you do this to us?" expression I had seen 1,000 times growing up. For one terrifying, crushing moment, I almost broke. My knees felt weak, my throat closed up, tears burned hot behind my eyes, threatening to spill over and complete my humiliation in front of 200 elegantly dressed guests. What am I doing? The thought hit me like a truck. This was Emily's wedding, her one perfect day. She had spent months, years probably, planning every detail: the vineyard, the oak tree, the string quartet, the fairy lights, the open bar later. And here I was, turning it into a sideshow with 15 noisy kids and a public rebellion no one had asked for. I wasn't the hero in this story. I was the crazy cousin ruining everything. Grandma's words from the group chat echoed loudly in my head. If you do this, you will break your cousin's heart. Is that who you want to be? Was it? I loved Emily. We had grown up sharing secrets, sneaking cookies from the kitchen during family holidays, staying up late at sleepovers, talking about boys and dreams. She had always been the bright one, the golden child, while I was the steady, quiet supporter in the background. Did I really want to be remembered as the person who made her cry on her wedding day? My hands started shaking. I could feel the panic rising, that old familiar urge to fix things, to apologize, to make myself small again so everyone else could feel comfortable.
I almost did it. I almost stepped backward, gathered the kids, and whispered, "Never mind, let's go back behind the barn." I could already picture myself spending the rest of the evening exhausted and resentful, watching from afar while the real celebration happened without me. At least then, I wouldn't be the villain. The music seemed louder now, pressing in on me. Emily was halfway down the aisle. Her eyes kept flicking toward me, wide with confusion, and something that looked like hurt. She slowed her steps slightly, her perfect smile faltering for just a second. That look almost destroyed me. She thinks I'm doing this to hurt her. The guilt crashed over me like a cold wave. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. All the years of saying yes, of being the reliable one, of swallowing my own needs, they were screaming at me to fix this right now, to protect the family peace, to not make a scene. One of the little boys behind me tugged my shirt hard. "Auntie, why is everyone staring? Did we do something bad?" His innocent question hit me straight in the heart. These kids weren't the problem. They were just children who wanted to see their family member get married. They had been dumped on me because their parents assumed I would handle it quietly, invisibly, without complaint. But I wasn't their servant. I wasn't the family's emotional support animal. I was a person too. Dr. Ramirez's voice floated into my mind from our late-night phone call weeks ago. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. The question is, what do you need to protect your peace? What did I need? I needed to stop disappearing. I needed to stop sacrificing my entire experience so others could have theirs. I needed to matter too. Tears welled up anyway. One escaped and slid down my cheek, mixing with the sweat and dirt on my face. I wiped it away quickly with the back of my hand. Emily was closer now, only 20 feet away. Her father glanced at me with a frown, then looked straight ahead again, clearly hoping this would all blow over. Aunt Linda was half standing, ready to march over and drag me away if necessary. My mother was mouthing words I couldn't hear, but could easily guess. Fix it. Now. The pressure felt unbearable. For a split second, I saw two futures branching out in front of me. In one, I apologized, took the kids back, smiled through the pain, and went home carrying even more resentment and exhaustion. The family would forgive me eventually, but I would stay trapped in the same role forever, the default babysitter, the one who never got to be a real guest. In the other, I stood my ground. I spoke my truth. I risked being hated, being talked about, being the difficult one for the rest of my life. Both paths terrified me.
Lily looked up at me with her big, trusting eyes and whispered, "Are we going to see the princess get married?" That simple question from a 3-year-old broke something open inside me. These kids deserved to be part of the day too, and so did I. I took a shaky breath, straightened my shoulders despite my ruined clothes, and held my position. I wasn't going to run. Not this time. The music reached its peak. Emily was almost at the front now, but she kept glancing back at me, her expression torn between joy and worry. The entire wedding hung in this fragile, electric silence.
My phone had finally stopped buzzing. Maybe they had given up, or maybe they were all too shocked to type anymore. I didn't know what would happen in the next 30 seconds. But for the first time in my life, I felt something stronger than the guilt. I felt the beginning of my own voice, and I refused to let it be silenced again.
The wedding march reached its crescendo as Emily stood just 10 feet away from me, her white gown glowing in the golden Napa sunlight. The entire vineyard had gone eerily quiet. 200 guests stood frozen, phones still raised, eyes wide with shock and anticipation. No one dared speak. The only sounds were the soft rustling of the grapevines in the breeze and the occasional sniffle from one of the children behind me. I could feel my pulse thundering in my ears. My hands were ice cold despite the warm California air. Tears still stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not now, not in front of everyone. Emily's eyes locked onto mine. Her perfect bridal smile had completely disappeared, replaced by a look of pure confusion and hurt. Her father tightened his grip on her arm, clearly trying to urge her forward, but she stayed rooted in place. Aunt Linda finally broke the silence. She stormed out of her seat, her pastel pink dress swishing angrily as she marched toward me. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice low but sharp enough to carry. "This is Emily's wedding. Have you lost your mind? Take those children back behind the barn right now." Her words hit like a slap. Several guests gasped. I saw my mother stand up too, her face pale with embarrassment.
I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My voice came out quieter than I wanted at first, but I forced it stronger. "I'm not taking them back, Aunt Linda," I said, looking her straight in the eyes. I was told I had to miss the entire wedding to babysit 15 kids for free. I flew across the country to celebrate with my family, not to work as unpaid childcare. These children deserve to see the wedding too. So either we all sit down and enjoy this day together, or someone needs to step up right now and help. The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Linda's face turned an alarming shade of red. "You are being incredibly selfish, after everything this family has done for you." "Done for me?" I cut in, my voice rising with years of pent-up frustration. "Like what? Treating me as the default babysitter at every single event? Making me miss holidays, parties, and now this wedding because I'm so good with kids? I have a career. I have my own life. I'm not your free labor." My mother stepped closer, her voice trembling with anger and shame. "Lower your voice. You're embarrassing all of us. This is not the time or place." "When is the time, Mom?" I asked, tears finally slipping down my cheeks. "Every gathering, every holiday, it's always, 'Can you just watch the kids?' You don't mind, do you?" "I mind. I've minded for years, and I'm done pretending I don't." The little boy who had asked if we were in trouble earlier started crying again. Lily tugged my leg harder. The twins whispered loudly, "Is the princess mad at us?" Emily stood there in the middle of the aisle, tears welling in her own eyes now. She looked back and forth between her mother and me, torn between the perfect day she had imagined and the painful truth unfolding in front of her. "Stop this right now," Aunt Linda snapped, stepping even closer. "You're ruining everything. Delete that message and take the kids back. We'll talk about this later." "No," I said firmly. My voice cracked, but I didn't back down. "We're talking about it now, in front of everyone, because this has been happening for years, and no one ever wants to talk about it when it's convenient for you." Guests were murmuring now. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed genuinely shocked, like they had never considered that the helpful cousin might have feelings about constantly being used. Uncle Mike stood up from his seat. "This is ridiculous. It's one day. Suck it up for your cousin." "One day?" I laughed bitterly, the sound coming out shaky. "It's never just one day. It's every day. Every time someone needs a favor, it's me, because I'm single, because I'm responsible, because I've always said yes. Well, today, I'm saying no." I turned to face Emily directly, my voice softening even as tears streamed down my face. "Emily,
I love you. I'm so happy for you, and I wanted to be here as your cousin, dancing, laughing, celebrating with you, not hidden behind the barn missing every moment. I'm sorry if this ruins your perfect day, but I couldn't keep swallowing it anymore. These kids aren't my responsibility alone. They have parents sitting right here. Emily's lower lip lolled. She looked at her mother, then back at me. For a long, painful second, the entire wedding hung in the balance. Then something shifted in her expression. She gently pulled her arm from her father's grip and walked straight toward me in her beautiful white gown, veil trailing behind her. The guests parted slightly as she approached. When she reached me, she took my hand, my sticky, trembling hand, and squeezed it. "I didn't know they did this to you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Tears spilled down her perfectly made-up cheeks. "I'm so sorry." She turned to face the guests, still holding my hand.
"Everyone, please make room," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the vineyard. "The children are going to sit with their parents, and my cousin is sitting with the family where she belongs." Aunt Linda looked like she might faint. "Emily, no, the photos, the seating chart." "Mom, stop," Emily said firmly, surprising even herself. "This is my wedding, and I want my cousin here with me." A ripple of movement went through the crowd. Some parents reluctantly stood up and came to collect their children, looking embarrassed or annoyed. Others stayed seated, whispering furiously. My mother stared at me with an unreadable expression, part anger, part shock, part something that might have been reluctant respect. I stood there, still holding Emily's hand, my heart racing. The confrontation had happened. The words I had held inside for years had finally been spoken, in front of the entire family. It felt terrifying. It felt freeing. Emily gave my hand one more squeeze before returning to her place at the front. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly and tried to resume the ceremony. As the music started again and guests slowly settled, I guided the remaining kids toward open seats with their parents. My legs felt weak, but I walked with my head held high. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in my life, I had finally fought back. And everyone at that wedding would remember it forever.
The rest of the ceremony passed in a kind of beautiful blur. I sat in the second row beside my mother and a very quiet Aunt Linda, my juice-stained jeans and dirty t-shirt standing out like a sore thumb among the elegant dresses and tailored suits. Lily had finally been collected by her embarrassed mother, and the other kids were now scattered with their parents, some still whispering about the loud auntie who had brought them to see the princess. Emily and her new husband exchanged vows under the oak tree as the sun dipped lower, painting the vineyard in soft pink and gold. It was breathtaking, but I barely heard the words. My heart was still racing from the confrontation, my hands trembling in my lap. Every time I glanced sideways, I caught family members stealing looks at me, some with anger, some with confusion, and a few with something that looked dangerously close to respect. When the officiant finally pronounced them husband and wife, and the cheers erupted, Emily turned and gave me a small, teary smile. It wasn't the perfect Instagram moment she had planned, but it was real. The reception that followed was where the real aftermath began. The barn had been transformed into a magical space. Long wooden tables, fairy lights strung everywhere, centerpieces overflowing with flowers, and an open bar already doing heavy business. I slipped away briefly to the bathroom to clean up as best as I could. I wiped the worst of the stains from my shirt and tried to fix my hair, but there was no hiding what had happened. I looked exactly like someone who had just survived a war with 15 toddlers. When I returned to the reception, the energy in the room had shifted. Several relatives approached me privately, one by one, like they were testing the waters. Cousin Sarah pulled me aside near the dessert table. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I had no idea they were putting that much pressure on you. I thought you actually volunteered. That was a lot." Uncle Dave, usually the loud jokester of the family, clapped me awkwardly on the shoulder. "You've got guts, kid. I wouldn't have had the balls to do that in front of everyone. My 2 kids are sitting with me now. Should have offered earlier." Even my brother Tommy came over, looking uncomfortable. "You really went nuclear, huh? Mom's pissed, but I get it. We've all been taking advantage. Sorry, sis."
Their words felt strange, validating, but also bittersweet. Where had this understanding been for the last 10 years?
My mother finally cornered me near the bar after I had managed to grab a much-needed glass of white wine. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. She pulled me to a quieter corner of the barn, away from the dancing and laughter. I braced myself. "You embarrassed the entire family today," she started, eyes flashing. "Your grandmother is upset. Aunt Linda is in tears in the bathroom. This was supposed to be a happy day for Emily, and you turned it into your personal therapy session." I took a slow sip of wine, letting the cool liquid steady me. For once, I didn't shrink. "Mom, I love this family," I said calmly, "but I've spent years being the invisible helper, the one who watches the kids, does the dishes, skips the fun parts so everyone else can relax. Today, I finally said enough. I didn't want to ruin Emily's day. I wanted to actually be part of it." She opened her mouth to argue, but I kept going. "I'm 28. I have a good job, my own apartment, and I'm in therapy learning how to set boundaries. If that makes me selfish in your eyes, then maybe we need to redefine what family means, because expecting one person to carry everyone else's load isn't love, it's exploitation." My mother stared at me for a long moment. I saw something flicker in her eyes, anger, defensiveness, and maybe, just maybe, a hint of realization. She had been the one who taught me to always say yes, to put family first, to never complain. Now her own daughter was challenging the very rules she had lived by.
I didn't see it that way," she finally admitted, her voice softer. "We just thought you were good at it." "Good at it doesn't mean I enjoy it or that it's fair," I replied. "I'm done being the default babysitter, maid, and emotional support system. If you want a real relationship with me, it has to be equal. No more guilt trips, no more assumptions." She didn't reply right away. Instead, she nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever gotten from her. Aunt Linda avoided me for most of the night, staying busy with photos and greeting guests. But toward the end of the reception, when the live band started playing slower songs and people were dancing, Emily found me. She had changed into a simpler reception dress, her makeup slightly smudged from happy tears in the earlier drama. She pulled me into a tight hug. "Thank you for speaking up," she whispered against my hair. "I was so stressed about everything being perfect that I let Mom handle too much. I had no idea she put all that on you. I'm really sorry." We stood there swaying to the music for a moment. "You looked beautiful walking down the aisle," I told her honestly, even with the chaos. She laughed softly. "It wasn't the Pinterest wedding I planned, but it was more real, and I needed to see that." By midnight, half the family was tipsy, and the conversations had turned surprisingly honest. Some aunts admitted they had done the same thing to their own daughters or nieces. A few cousins shared stories of feeling trapped in similar roles. The open bar had loosened tongues in the best and worst ways. Not everyone was supportive. Watching couples dance under the fairy lights, I felt a strange mix of exhaustion and power. The tables had turned. For the first time, people were looking at me differently, not as the reliable doormat, but as someone who had finally drawn a line. I still loved my loud, messy, complicated family, but I was no longer willing to lose myself inside it. The real test would come tomorrow, when the wine wore off and real conversations had to happen. But for tonight, under the California stars, I had finally found my voice, and nothing would ever be the same again. The morning after the wedding, Napa Valley looked peaceful and golden under a soft blue sky, as if nothing dramatic had happened the day before. But inside me, everything had shifted. I stood on the small balcony of my boutique hotel room, sipping coffee and watching the distant hills roll out like a painting. My emerald green dress still hung untouched in the closet. I had never gotten to wear it. Instead, I had shown up in juice-stained jeans and a messy ponytail, and somehow that had become the most important outfit of the entire trip. My suitcase was packed. My flight back to Chicago left in a few hours. But before I left California, I needed a moment to breathe and process what had actually happened. The confrontation at the ceremony, the shocked faces, Emily taking my hand in front of everyone. The late-night conversations at the reception, where family members finally saw me as a real person instead of just the reliable one. It all felt like a fever dream now. I opened my phone and scrolled through the group chat. The messages had slowed down overnight, but the tone had changed. No more demands, no more guilt trips. Instead, there were a few tentative olive branches.
Hey, I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. We've all been taking you for granted. Sorry. Proud of you for speaking up yesterday. Took courage. Let's grab coffee next time you're in town. Even my mother had sent a short message at 2 a.m. I love you. We'll talk more when you're home. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a full apology from everyone. Aunt Linda still hadn't messaged me directly. But it was something. A crack in the old pattern. The beginning of real change. I thought about the woman I had been just a few weeks ago. The one who would have said yes out of fear, swallowed her resentment, and gone home carrying even more emotional weight. That version of me was gone now. She had finally stood up under that oak tree, with 15 kids behind her, and chosen herself. My phone buzzed with a new text. It was from Emily. Thank you again for yesterday. It wasn't the wedding I planned, but it might have been the one I needed. You helped me see some things about my own family too. Safe flight home. Love you. I smiled, tears pricking my eyes, not from sadness this time, but from relief. The Uber ride to the airport felt different, lighter. I watched the vineyards fade in the rearview mirror and realized I wasn't running away from my family. I was walking away from the old role they had assigned me. Back in Chicago, the city welcomed me with its familiar gray skies and bustling energy. My tiny apartment felt like a sanctuary. I unpacked, took a long hot shower, and collapsed onto my couch wearing my favorite fuzzy socks. That evening, I called my therapist, Dr. Ramirez. She listened as I told her the whole story. The phone call from Aunt Linda, the building pressure, the chaos at the vineyard, the moment I almost lost my nerve, and the confrontation that changed everything. When I finished, there was a long, warm silence on the line. Then she said softly, "You didn't just set a boundary. You showed every woman in that family, and yourself, what it looks like to finally choose yourself. That took incredible courage. How do you feel now?" I thought about it for a moment. Scared, I admitted, but also powerful, free, like I finally found my voice after years of whispering. Dr. Ramirez laughed gently. That's the beginning of real healing. The family may push back. Some relationships might change or even distance for a while, but the ones worth keeping will grow stronger because they're based on respect, not obligation. She was right. Over the next few weeks, the changes became clearer. Some relatives pulled away. Aunt Linda was cold in the group chat for a while, and a couple of older aunts stopped inviting me to smaller gatherings. That hurt, but it also felt like necessary space. Others stepped closer. My sister started offering to split childcare duties at future events, instead of assuming I would handle everything. My mother called more often, not to guilt me, but to actually ask how I was doing. Emily and I began texting regularly, building a new, more honest cousin relationship. When the next family event came up, a baby shower back in New Jersey, the invitation was different. It said, "We'd love for you to come as a guest. No expectations. Let us know if you can make it." I smiled when I read it. For the first time, it felt like a real choice. I still love my loud, complicated, wine-soaked American family. They're messy and imperfect and sometimes exhausting. But I no longer lose myself inside their expectations. I've learned to answer honestly now. I'd love to help if it works for me. That small sentence has changed everything. Looking back at that chaotic day in the Napa vineyard, I realized I wasn't supposed to babysit 15 kids at my family's wedding. I was supposed to learn how to stop shrinking. I was supposed to find my voice in the middle of all that noise. And I did. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a different woman staring back. Stronger, clearer, kinder to herself. The reliable one is still here, but she's no longer available for exploitation. She shows up for the people who show up for her. She protects her peace. She chooses herself first.
And that decision, made in a juice-stained shirt with 15 kids behind her, changed everything. If you're reading this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, always expected to say yes, always carrying the load so others can shine, I want you to know this. Your voice matters. Your boundaries are valid. And the moment you finally speak up might feel terrifying, but it can also be the moment you finally set yourself free. I walked away from that wedding stronger, and I've never looked back. This final chapter brings emotional closure, reflection on growth, realistic family changes, and an empowering message that fits the viral USA personal story perfectly. The full 10-chapter story is now complete. It flows beautifully from start to finish, with building suspense, deep emotion, and a satisfying empowerment arc. Would you like me to make any final adjustments to any chapter, combine them into one full document, or add anything else? Just let me know.